Chapter 101. The factory buzzed with anticipation as Matthew Hesch and Don Kessler prepared to present the modular vehicle project to their engineering team. The meeting was scheduled in the largest design room on the premises, a space filled with drafting tables, chalkboards, and pinned blueprints. Engineers, machinists, and designers gathered, eager to hear the details of their next challenge. Don stood at the head of the room, a large blueprint of the modular vehicle pinned to the board behind him. Matthew, dressed in his usual sharp suit, stood beside him, observing the room with a calm but commanding presence. "Thank you all for coming," Matthew began, his voice steady and firm. "What we're about to discuss has the potential to redefine our industry, not just for the military, but for every sector we touch." Don stepped forward, pointing to the blueprint. "This is the concept for a modular vehicle. Instead of manufacturing multiple specialized models, we'll create a single base chassis. This chassis can be adapted for different roles by swapping out components." He gestured to the drawings on the board, which showed a single vehicle frame outfitted with various configurations: transport modules, reconnaissance equipment, heavy weaponry, and even medical supplies. "Think of it like a toolkit," Don continued. "You have one base, but you can change the tools to fit the job." Experienced tales at Novelbin. The room buzzed with murmurs of interest. One of the senior engineers, a wiry man named James, raised his hand. "How will this affect production? Won't designing interchangeable parts complicate the manufacturing process?" Matthew stepped in to answer. "On the contrary, it simplifies production in the long term. Once the base chassis is standardized, we can mass produce it. The modules will be designed separately and assembled as needed. This will save time, reduce costs, and make our factories more efficient." Don nodded. "Exactly. The challenge lies in creating a sturdy, versatile base chassis that can handle the demands of each module. That's where all of you come in." The team exchanged determined looks. James leaned forward. "What's the timeline for the prototype?" Matthew glanced at Don, who answered confidently, 3 months. We'll need a working prototype ready for testing by then." Another engineer, a young woman named Elena, raised her hand. "What about the materials? If this chassis needs to be both sturdy and adaptable, we'll need to experiment with different alloys." Matthew nodded. "We've already reached out to our suppliers. You'll have access to the best materials available. Focus on durability without sacrificing weight. Remember, this vehicle has to remain mobile and efficient." Elena jotted down notes, her expression focused. The energy in the room shifted from curiosity to determination. Over the next few weeks, the factory transformed into a hive of innovation. The engineering team divided into subgroups, each tackling a different aspect of the project. Some focused on designing the chassis, experimenting with lightweight alloys and reinforced joints. Others worked on developing the interchangeable modules, brainstorming configurations for transport, combat, and reconnaissance. Don and Matthew oversaw every step of the process. Don spent most of his time on the factory floor, moving between workstations and offering guidance. Matthew, meanwhile, balanced his time between managing the company's broader operations and ensuring the modular vehicle project stayed on track. One afternoon, Don called Matthew to the testing area where the first prototype of the chassis had been assembled. The frame was a sleek, sturdy design, its reinforced steel beams gleaming under the factory lights. "This is it," Don said, his voice tinged with pride. "The base chassis, lightweight, durable, and built to adapt." Matthew walked around the chassis, inspecting it closely. He ran his hand along the steel beams, testing the firmness of the joints. "It's solid," he said. "Have you tested its weight capacity?" Don nodded. "It can handle twice the load we anticipated, and the suspension system makes it surprisingly agile." Matthew's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Good, now let's see how it handles in the field. Attach the transport module and take it to the test track." Within an hour, the prototype was ready. The transport module, a simple cargo bed designed to carry supplies, was securely attached to the chassis. A driver climbed into the vehicle while Matthew and Don observed from a platform overlooking the track. "Begin," Don instructed, signaling the driver. The vehicle roared to life, its engine purring smoothly. It sped onto the track, navigating sharp turns, steep inclines, and uneven terrain with ease. Matthew watched closely, noting how the suspension absorbed shocks and how the chassis maintained its balance under pressure. "It's performing better than I expected," Matthew said, a rare smile breaking across his face. Don grinned. "And this is just the beginning. Imagine how it'll handle once we optimize the design." With the chassis proving its potential, the team shifted focus to the modules. The engineers worked tirelessly, designing and testing configurations for different scenarios. The combat module included a mounted cannon and reinforced plating, While the reconnaissance module featured advanced optics and wireless communication systems, Gabriel led the effort to design a medical module which included storage for supplies and space for transporting wounded soldiers. This could save lives on the battlefield, he explained during a presentation to Matthew and Don. Matthew nodded approvingly. Excellent work. This isn't just about winning wars, it's about making a difference. As the modules came together, the team conducted rigorous tests, simulating real-world conditions. Each success brought them closer to their goal, and the excitement in the factory was palpable. 3 months after the project began, the first complete prototype, a modular vehicle equipped with a combat module, was ready for deployment. Matthew and Don arranged a demonstration for military officials, inviting generals and key government representatives to the testing grounds. The demonstration was a resounding success. The vehicle performed flawlessly, maneuvering through obstacles and firing its mounted cannon with precision. The officials were visibly impressed, and General Warner approached Matthew after the event. "Hesh, you've outdone yourself," Warner said, clapping him on the shoulder. "This vehicle isn't just innovative, it's revolutionary. The Republic owes you a great debt." Matthew inclined his head modestly. "It's a team effort, General. I'm just ensuring we deliver on our promises." As the officials left, Don turned to Matthew, his eyes shining with pride. "We did it." Matthew nodded, his expression resolute. "Yes, but this is just the start. If we want to stay ahead, we can't stop innovating. Let's get back to work." With the modular vehicle project complete, Matthew Hesh and his team had proven once again that innovation was the key to progress. But for Matthew, the journey was far from over. The future held new challenges and opportunities, and he was ready to face them head-on. Chapter 102. The success of the modular vehicle demonstration rippled through the corridors of power in Sylvania. Within days of the presentation, orders began pouring in from the War Ministry, requesting the immediate production of the vehicles in various configurations. General Warner himself sent a personal note to Matthew Hesh, commending the innovation and outlining the Republic's plans to deploy the vehicles across the nation. In the factory, the atmosphere was electric. Workers moved with renewed vigor, their pride evident in every bolt tightened and panel welded. The assembly lines had been retooled to accommodate the modular design, and the first batch of vehicles was already nearing completion. In the conference room of Hesh Industries, Matthew sat at the head of the table, flanked by Robert Anders and Don Kessler. Maps, blueprints, and financial projections covered the table, creating a mosaic of the company's future. "The military contracts are only the beginning," Matthew began, his tone measured but ambitious. "The modular vehicle's success proves that adaptability is the key to progress. If we limit this innovation to the battlefield, we're wasting its potential." Robert leaned forward, nodding. "You're thinking commercial applications?" "Exactly," Matthew said. "Imagine a modular vehicle for farmers, one configuration for transporting crops, another for plowing fields, or a vehicle for city use capable of switching between passenger transport and cargo delivery." Don tapped a pencil against his notebook thoughtfully. "That would require diversifying the production lines. We'd need to separate military manufacturing from civilian production." Matthew gestured to a map marked with the land grants they had recently acquired. "That's why we're expanding. The facility near the rail hub will focus on military contracts. Meanwhile, we'll dedicate the new factory by the port to civilian applications." Robert studied the map. "The port location is ideal for exporting. If we market this correctly, we could dominate international markets as well." "Exactly," Matthew agreed. "We'll need to recruit more engineers and expand our workforce, and we'll need a marketing team to introduce these concepts to the public." Don raised a hand. "There's one challenge we haven't addressed. The modular design works because of the wireless communication systems and advanced materials. Can we maintain that level of quality while scaling production?" Matthew leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "It's a valid concern. For now, we focus on perfecting the process. Once we're confident in the design and manufacturing efficiency, we scale up." Robert made a note. "They'll start drafting recruitment plans and reach out to our suppliers about increasing material shipments." As production ramped up, Matthew insisted on rigorous testing for each batch of vehicles. The modular design, while revolutionary, required flawless execution to maintain its versatility. Don and his team established a dedicated testing facility just outside Sylvania where prototypes were put through their paces in a variety of conditions. One morning, Matthew arrived at the testing grounds to oversee the trials. Don greeted him with a clipboard in hand, his expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Today, we're testing the civilian configurations," Don explained. "We've got a cargo module, a passenger module, and even a mobile workshop module." Matthew nodded, gesturing toward the first vehicle on the track. Let's see how it handles. The cargo configuration was first. The vehicle, loaded with crates of sandbags to simulate a full load, navigated the uneven terrain with ease. Its suspension system absorbed the shocks, and the modular attachment remained secure despite the bumps and jolts. Next came the passenger module. A group of factory workers volunteered to act as test passengers, boarding the vehicle and fastening their seatbelts. The driver maneuvered through a series of sharp turns and sudden stops, ensuring the safety mechanisms functioned as intended. Finally, the mobile workshop module was put to the test. Equipped with tools and a small generator, the vehicle was designed to assist with repairs in remote areas. Don demonstrated its capabilities, using the onboard tools to fix a mechanical issue on another vehicle. Matthew watched each test with a critical eye, taking notes and asking questions. By the end of the day, he was satisfied. These designs are solid. Once we refine the manufacturing process, we'll be ready for full-scale production. Find adventures at RanoVox. A week later, Hesh Industries held a public event to showcase the modular vehicle's civilian applications. The factory yard was transformed into an exhibition space, complete with banners, booths, and demonstration areas. Journalists, government officials, and business leaders gathered to witness the latest innovations. Matthew stood on a makeshift stage, addressing the crowd. The modular vehicle was born out of necessity during the war, but its potential extends far beyond the battlefield. Today, we unveil a new era of adaptability vehicles that serve not just soldiers, but farmers, workers, and families. Behind him, the vehicles were displayed in various configurations. One was outfitted with a refrigerated module for transporting perishable goods. Another featured a passenger module with comfortable seating and safety features. A third showcased the mobile workshop module, complete with a live demonstration by Don. The crowd buzzed with excitement as Matthew outlined the benefits of the modular design. He emphasized efficiency, affordability, and the ability to customize the vehicle for specific needs. After the presentation, journalists crowded around Matthew, firing questions about the technology and its implications. One reporter asked, "Mr. Hesh, do you believe this will revolutionize transportation?" Matthew smiled. Revolutionize might be too strong a word. Let's just say it'll make life a lot easier for a lot of people. The public unveiling was a resounding success. Within days, orders began pouring in from farmers, merchants, and municipal governments. Matthew's vision of a dual-purpose manufacturing operation serving both military and civilian needs was becoming a reality. In his office, Matthew reviewed the latest sales reports with Robert. "We're off to a strong start," Robert said, pointing to the numbers. "Demand is exceeding our initial projections." Matthew nodded, a faint smile on his face. "Good. Let's use this momentum to secure more contracts, reach out to international markets, and see if there's interest abroad." Robert raised an eyebrow. "You're thinking global already?" "I'm thinking about staying ahead," Matthew replied. "If we don't lead, someone else will." As the factory hummed with activity late into the night, Matthew walked through the assembly lines, observing the workers and machines in motion. The modular vehicle project had proven that innovation could drive progress, but he knew there was still much to do. Standing at the edge of the factory floor, he thought about the challenges ahead: new markets to explore, competitors to outpace, and technologies to develop. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Hesh Industries was no longer just a factory, it was a symbol of ingenuity and determination, and Matthew Hesh, with his relentless drive and vision, was at the helm of it all. Chapter 103. The relentless hum of the factory had finally faded into the background as Matthew Hesh closed his office door behind him. For months, his life had been consumed by deadlines, designs, and the ever-present demand to stay ahead of the competition. Tonight, however, he resolved to step away from it all, even if just for a few hours. The streets of Sylvania glowed softly under the electric lamps, casting warm halos over the cobblestones. Matthew strolled aimlessly, his hands tucked into the pockets of his overcoat. The crisp evening air was refreshing, carrying the faint scent of baked goods from a nearby bakery. He realized it had been weeks since he had taken the time to enjoy something as simple as a leisurely walk. His wandering led him to a small cafe nestled at the corner of a quiet street. The sign above the door read Leisure Lane Tea Room, and through the large windows, he could see a few patrons sipping tea and chatting softly. Matthew stepped inside. The gentle chime of a bell announcing his arrival, the warmth of the room enveloped him, and the scent of brewed tea and pastries was a welcome contrast to the metallic tang of the factory. "A table for one?" asked the server, a young man with a polite smile. Matthew nodded. "Yes, please." He was seated near the window where he could watch the passers-by. The server returned quickly with a menu and Matthew ordered a pot of Earl Grey tea and a slice of apple tart. As he waited, he allowed himself to absorb the atmosphere. The soft clinking of porcelain, the murmur of conversation, and the occasional rustle of newspaper pages were soothing. When his tea and tart arrived, he savored the first sip, the citrusy aroma of bergamot bringing a rare moment of calm. After finishing his tea, Matthew decided to explore further. Just across the street was a bookshop, its interior glowing invitingly. He stepped inside, greeted by the rich, musty scent of old books. Rows upon rows of shelves stretched out before him, each laden with volumes of varying sizes and colors. Matthew's fingers traced the spines as he walked down the aisles. His eyes scanning titles, he paused in the history section where a book on ancient engineering caught his attention. Its title, Innovations Through the Ages, intrigued him. Carrying the book, he made his way to the reading corner at the back of the shop. It was a cozy space with armchairs and a crackling fireplace. He sank into one of the chairs and opened the book, flipping through chapters that detailed remarkable feats of engineering, Roman aqueducts, the printing press, and even early steam engines. For the first time in weeks, his mind wasn't consumed by the future. Instead, he allowed himself to marvel at the ingenuity of those who had come before him. Their challenges, triumphs, and failures reminded him of his own journey in his previous world. His respect for their ingenuity was high. Feeling rejuvenated, Matthew decided to visit the city's Central Park, which was renowned for its serene walking paths and picturesque ponds. Hiring a small horse-drawn carriage, he instructed the driver to take him through the park's main avenue. The rhythmic clatter of hooves against the pavement was soothing as the carriage meandered through the park. Electric lamps illuminated the winding paths, casting long shadows of the trees that lined the avenue. A group of children played near a fountain, their laughter echoing in the crisp night air. The driver stopped near a pond at Matthew's request. He disembarked, thanking the man, and walked toward the water's edge. The surface of the pond reflected the moonlight, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze added to the tranquility. He sat on a bench, watching the ripples on the water. The quiet allowed his mind to wander freely, something he hadn't permitted himself to do in a long time. He thought about the future not as a series of deadlines but as a canvas of possibilities. As he made his way back toward the city center, Matthew noticed a poster advertising a play at the Grand Theater, The Engineer's Dilemma. The title piqued his curiosity, and on a whim, he decided to attend. He purchased a ticket and took a seat near the middle of the grand auditorium. The theater was an architectural marvel with gilded balconies, ornate chandeliers, and plush red seats. The audience murmured in anticipation as the curtains rose, revealing a set designed to resemble the 19th century. The play followed the story of an ambitious young engineer torn between his passion for innovation and his personal relationships. Matthew found himself engrossed, the protagonist's struggles and triumphs resonating deeply with him. When the final curtain fell, he joined the audience in enthusiastic applause. As he left the theater, he felt an unexpected sense of validation. The play had reminded him of the importance of balance, a lesson he vowed to carry forward. To end the night, Matthew stopped by the Iron Tap, a familiar tavern where he had once celebrated his team's victories. The lively chatter and clinking mugs were a sharp contrast to the quiet of the park and theater, but it felt equally welcoming. He ordered a glass of whiskey and found a corner table. As he sipped the amber liquid, he let his mind drift. The night had been a rare reprieve from the weight of his responsibilities. For a few hours he had been able to step back and simply exist, free from the demands of innovation and war. Looking around the tavern, Matthew felt a renewed sense of gratitude. The people here, factory workers, shopkeepers, soldiers, were the reason he worked so tirelessly. His efforts weren't just for the Republic's glory but for the lives of those who called it home. When he finally left the tavern, the city was quiet, its streets bathed in the soft glow of gas lamps. Matthew walked back to his residence, his steps lighter than they had been in weeks. He knew the challenges ahead would be immense, but tonight had reminded him of something vital. Even the most driven minds needed rest to remain sharp. Tomorrow, the work would continue, but for now, Matthew Hesh allowed himself the luxury of contentment. Read new chapters at novelbin.com. Chapter 104. The hum of machinery echoed faintly through the walls of Matthew Hesh's office in Sylvania. Outside, the factory floor was alive with activity, workers moving like clockwork to meet the relentless demands of production. Inside the office, the mood was calm, with Matthew reviewing blueprints spread across his desk. A knock at the door broke his focus. Robert Anders stepped in, his expression slightly surprised. "Matthew, you have visitors," Robert announced. Matthew raised an eyebrow. "I wasn't expecting anyone. Who is it?" Read latest chapters at novelbin.com. Calm, Charles Fitzwilliam and Miss Amber Fitzwilliam, Robert replied, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Matthew straightened. It had been months since he had last seen the Fitzwilliams, and their visit was unexpected. Show them in. Robert nodded and stepped aside. Moments later, Charles Fitzwilliam entered, his presence as commanding as ever, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit. His eyes gleamed with pride. Following closely behind was Amber. Her poise and grace a striking complement to her father's formidable demeanor. Mr. Hesh. Charles greeted warmly, extending his hand. It's been far too long. Matthew rose to meet him, shaking his hand firmly. Mr. Fitzwilliam, Miss Amber, this is a surprise. Please, have a seat. Amber offered a bright smile as she took a seat beside her father. It's good to see you again, Mr. Hesh. I hope we're not interrupting. Not at all, Matthew assured them, gesturing for Robert to bring tea. To what do I owe the pleasure? Charles leaned back in his chair, his gaze sweeping over the office. I've been following your progress, Matthew, and I must say, I'm thoroughly impressed. The strides you've made in such a short time are nothing short of remarkable. Matthew allowed himself a small smile. Thank you, sir. It's been a challenging but rewarding journey. Charles leaned forward, his voice lowering slightly. Challenging, yes, but rewarding indeed. Do you realize that thanks to you, my initial investment has quintupled? Between the government contracts, the private sector deals, and the sheer demand for your innovations, Hesh Industries has become a cornerstone of the Republic's economy. Matthew's expression remained calm, though he felt a sense of pride swell within him. I'm glad the investment has paid off. Your support was critical in getting us to this point. Amber spoke next, her tone warm. It's more than just the returns, Mr. Hesh. My father and I have been amazed by the impact your work has had not just on the battlefield but on the Republic as a whole. The technological advancements you've spearheaded are changing lives. Matthew inclined his head. That's always been the goal. Innovation isn't just about profit, it's about progress. Robert returned with the tea, setting the tray down on the table between them. Charles picked up his cup, savoring the aroma before taking a sip. I imagine you're wondering why it took us so long to visit, Charles said after a moment. Amber and I have been away Newport initially for a family vacation, but it wasn't just leisure. Amber nodded. It was also a business trip. Father met with several potential partners abroad, discussing new opportunities in manufacturing and shipping. The trip kept us away longer than expected. Matthew smiled faintly. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten about me. Charles chuckled. Hardly, my boy. In fact, we spoke of you often. Your success has been a point of pride for us. Amber's eyes sparkled with amusement. He's not exaggerating. Everywhere we went, your name seemed to come up. Investors, industrialists, even a few foreign dignitaries, they all wanted to know more about the man behind Hesh Industries. Matthew felt a flicker of unease at the thought of being a topic of conversation among such circles. I hope they had kind things to say. Charles smiled, mostly curiosity, but also admiration. What you've done here in Sylvania is becoming the standard by which others measure innovation. The conversation shifted as Charles and Amber inquired about the factory's operations, the latest projects, and the challenges Matthew faced. He answered candidly, discussing everything from supply chain bottlenecks to the ongoing development of modular vehicles. While all of that was impressive, Charles was awfully quiet at the end. Is there something wrong, Mr. Charles? Matthew asked. It's just that you haven't introduced aircrafts to the military. You had demonstrated its potential use long time ago, and I was hoping that you'd introduce it to them. Why haven't you? The aircrafts, he began, pausing for a moment. The reason for that is the skills needed to pilot those aircrafts are far more specialized than anything the Republic's military is currently prepared to handle. Charles furrowed his brow, setting his teacup down with a deliberate motion. Specialized skills? That sounds like an obstacle, not a barrier. Surely you've thought about how to address that. I have, Matthew replied, his tone measured. The issue isn't just teaching someone to fly, it's maintaining the machines, understanding aerodynamics, and developing a command structure that can effectively integrate air support into traditional military operations. It's a paradigm shift, one that requires time, resources, and commitment. Amber, who had been listening quietly, chimed in, but isn't that what innovation is about? Changing the paradigm? You've already done it with vehicles and wireless systems. Matthew sighed, leaning forward. You're both right. The potential of aircrafts is immense, but introducing them too soon, before the military is ready to use them effectively, risks squandering that potential. The Republic just came out of a war where ground-based strategies were dominant. The focus now is on consolidating those gains. Charles wasn't convinced. He tapped his fingers on the armrest of his chair, a sign of his impatience. Matthew, you demonstrated the prototype, the strategic advantage it could offer: reconnaissance, rapid troop deployment. Even bombardment could solidify the Republic's dominance for decades. Matthew nodded. I don't disagree, but consider the scale. The current manufacturing infrastructure is optimized for vehicles and weapons. Aircrafts require an entirely different set of tools, materials, and facilities. Not to mention training programs for pilots and ground crews. It's not impossible, but it is daunting. Charles leaned forward, his tone taking on an edge of urgency. Daunting, perhaps, but worth it. Think of what's happening in the world. Other nations won't sit idle while the Republic advances. If you don't act now, someone else will, and when they do, the Republic will lose its edge. Amber placed a hand on her father's arm, her voice softer but equally firm. Matthew, you've always been ahead of your time. Don't let caution hold you back. If anyone can make this work, it's you. Matthew studied their faces, seeing the conviction in their expressions. He drummed his fingers on the desk, deep in thought. We have to be patient with this technological advancement, Matthew said, his tone steady but thoughtful. The stakes are too high for haste. Rushing into the development of aircrafts without proper infrastructure and training could lead to setbacks, not progress. Charles leaned back in his chair. Patience is a virtue, Matthew, but sometimes it can also be a hindrance. You've already proven your ability to push boundaries. Waiting too long might cost us the edge we currently hold. Amber chimed in, her voice softer but persuasive. Father has a point. The Republic is looking to Hesh Industries as a leader in innovation. If you hesitate too much, someone else might seize the opportunity. It's not just about the Republic's dominance, it's about staying true to your vision. I assure you that no one on this earth would be able to create aircrafts other than the Hesh Industries, Matthew assured. Chapter 105. Matthew sat back in his chair, his fingers steepled as he considered Charles Fitzwilliam's words. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of the conversation pressing on them all. Finally, Charles broke the stillness, his voice measured but firm. Matthew. Charles began, I understand your hesitations, but you must also understand mine. As an investor, I have a vested interest in the continued success of Hesh Industries. The potential of these aircraft cannot be ignored, not by you. Not by the Republic, and certainly not by me. That's why I propose we take a different approach. Matthew raised an eyebrow. What do you have in mind, Mr. Fitzwilliam? Charles leaned forward, his tone sharpening with conviction. Let one of the generals see the prototype, let them judge its value for themselves. You've demonstrated its potential to me. Now it's time to show it to someone who can make the decision to integrate it into the Republic's military strategy. Matthew hesitated, his mind racing through the implications. That's a significant step. If the demonstration goes poorly or the general deems it impractical, it could set us back. But if it goes well, Amber interjected, her voice carrying a hint of excitement, it could fast-track everything. You've always believed in the prototype, Matthew. Show it to someone who can truly appreciate its capabilities. Matthew sighed, leaning back in his chair. Which general do you have in mind? Charles exchanged a glance with Amber before replying. General Nathaniel Warner. He's pragmatic but forward-thinking, and his influence over military procurement is unmatched. If you win him over, the rest will follow. Matthew nodded slowly. Warner is a logical choice, but the demonstration will need to be flawless. The aircraft is still in its early stages, and any misstep could undermine everything we've worked for. Then make it flawless, Charles said simply. You've faced bigger challenges, Matthew. This is just another one to overcome. Matthew sat in thoughtful silence for a moment before finally nodding. Very well, I'll arrange the demonstration, but we'll need time to prepare. The aircraft must be in peak condition and the presentation must highlight its potential without overpromising. Charles smiled, his confidence in Matthew evident. I knew you'd see the value in this. Warner will be impressed. You'll see. Amber leaned forward, her expression bright. I can help with the logistics, if you'd like, coordinating with Warner's office, setting up the venue, ensuring everything runs smoothly. Experience tales at Novelbin. Matthew appreciated her enthusiasm. That would be helpful, thank you. Consider it done, Amber said with a determined nod as the conversation turned to logistics. Matthew's mind was already formulating plans. The aircraft prototype was housed in a secure hangar near the Factoria sleek, ambitious machine that represented the culmination of years of innovation. If this demonstration succeeded, it could open the door to an entirely new era of warfare and transportation. 2 days later, the massive hangar doors creaked open, revealing the gleaming aircraft prototype. Its polished metal surface reflected the sunlight streaming in, and its wings stretched wide, an imposing testament to human ingenuity. General Nathaniel Warner stood just inside the hangar, his arms crossed as he studied the machine. His expression was neutral, but his sharp eyes betrayed his curiosity. Matthew approached the general, his posture confident but respectful. General Warner, thank you for coming. It's an honor to have you here. Warner extended a hand, his grip firm. Hesh, I've heard much about this machine of yours. Fitzwilliam speaks highly of it. Matthew gestured toward the aircraft. It's unlike anything you've seen before, General. This is the future of reconnaissance and rapid deployment. Warner stepped closer, circling the aircraft as he inspected it. Impressive, but machines on the ground are one thing. In the air, they're untested. How can I trust it won't fail at the worst possible moment? That's why we're here, Matthew replied, to show you what it's capable of. If you'll follow me, I'll explain its key features before the demonstration. Warner nodded, following Matthew to a workbench laden with blueprints and diagrams. Matthew outlined the aircraft's design, emphasizing its lightweight yet durable frame, its compact engine, and its innovative controls. He explained how it could reach altitudes far beyond traditional reconnaissance methods and how its speed made it nearly impossible to target with conventional artillery. What about range? Warner asked, his voice skeptical. How far can it go before it runs out of fuel? We've optimized the engine for efficiency, Matthew explained. It can travel up to 200 miles on a single tank, depending on conditions. For reconnaissance missions, that's more than sufficient. 200 miles in how many days? Days? Matthew scoffed lightly, a faint smile playing on his lips. General Warner, the aircraft doesn't operate on the pace of traditional transport. It can cover that distance in just a few hours, depending on wind conditions. This is speed and efficiency unlike anything you've seen. Warner raised an eyebrow, his skepticism softening. Impressive, but speed isn't everything. It needs to be reliable and versatile. Matthew gestured to a nearby mechanic standing by the aircraft. Let me show you. The aircraft was rolled out onto the airfield, its propeller glinting in the sunlight. The hum of its engine reverberated through the air as the mechanic conducted final checks under Matthew's watchful eye. Warner stood with arms crossed, observing every detail. Matthew addressed Warner directly. This aircraft is designed for multiple roles: reconnaissance, troop deployment, and even light bombardment. Its construction prioritizes durability and adaptability, ensuring it can withstand field conditions. Warner nodded but remained silent as Matthew continued. Let's proceed with the demonstration. You'll see for yourself. Matthew climbed into the cockpit, his movements precise. The engine roared to life, and with a wave to the ground crew, he began to taxi down the makeshift runway. Within moments, the aircraft lifted gracefully into the air, climbing steadily in the sky. Matthew executed a series of maneuvers, sharp banks, smooth dives, and a loop that left the onlookers below murmuring in awe. He then demonstrated the aircraft's speed, shooting across the length of the airfield in mere seconds. To emphasize its reconnaissance capabilities, Matthew circled a nearby village and returned to the airfield, landing smoothly. Upon exiting the aircraft, he presented a sketch head quickly drawn from memory of the village layout, showcasing the aircraft's ability to observe and relay intelligence. As Matthew approached, Warner's expression was no longer skeptical. He extended his hand. Hesh, I have to admit, I'm impressed. That performance was beyond my expectations. Matthew accepted the handshake with a nod. Thank you, General. This is just the beginning. With proper integration, these aircraft could redefine military strategy. I will speak with the President about this. Chapter 106. The warm light of the afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of the presidential office, casting long shadows over the polished mahogany desk. President Theodore Clay leaned back in his chair. His desk was neatly organized, but a small collection of scaled-down Hesh Motors vehicle models stood out, displayed prominently. General Nathaniel Warner entered the room, his stride purposeful but respectful. Clay rose to greet him, extending a firm handshake. General Warner, Clay said with a smile, always a pleasure to see you. What brings you here today? Warner nodded politely. Mr. President, I've just returned from witnessing something extraordinary, a demonstration of technology that could change the future of our armed forces. I felt it important to bring this to your attention personally. Clay's interest was piqued. He gestured for Warner to take a seat as he returned to his chair. You have my attention, General. What sort of technology are we talking about? Warner wasted no time. Aircraft, sir. Matthew Hesh has developed a prototype that is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's fast, versatile, and capable of reconnaissance missions, rapid troop deployment, and even light bombardment if we attach bombs. The demonstration was flawless, and I believe it holds immense potential for the Republic's military. Clay leaned forward, his hands clasped on the desk. Aircraft, you say? Hesh again, that man seems to have an endless well of ideas. Tell me more about the demonstration. Warner detailed the event, describing the aircraft's speed, maneuverability, and intelligence-gathering capabilities. He spoke of how the machine could traverse 200 miles in hours, its ability to evade conventional artillery, and the potential it held for both defense and offense. As he spoke, Clay's expression shifted from curiosity to outright excitement. "General," Clay said, his voice laced with enthusiasm, "it sounds like you're describing the future of warfare, and to think this came from one of our own, a citizen of the Republic." "Not just a citizen, sir," Warner replied. "Matthew Hesh is a visionary. His contributions during the war with Mexico gave us the edge we needed. This aircraft is simply the next step." Clay leaned back, a thoughtful smile on his face. "I've been a fan of Hesh's work for some time now. Did you know I own every model of vehicle his company has produced?" Warner raised an eyebrow, amused by the president's enthusiasm. "I was not aware, sir, but it's fitting. Hesh has become a symbol of innovation and progress for the Republic." Clay stood, pacing behind his desk as he mulled over the implications. "General, if this aircraft is everything you say it is, it could cement our position as a dominant force on the world stage. But tell me, what does Hesh need from us to bring this vision to life?" Warner straightened in his chair. "He needs commitment, sir, infrastructure to support the aircraft's production, training programs for pilots, and an initial investment to scale up manufacturing. He's ready to lead the effort, but he can't do it alone." Clay nodded, his mind racing. "He'll sign off on it. The Republic owes much of its recent success to Hesh Industries. It's only fitting we continue to invest in that success, draft the necessary proposals, and he'll ensure they pass through Congress." Warner smiled faintly. "I'll inform Hesh of your decision. He'll be pleased to know you've taken a personal interest in this project." "More than that," Clay said, a gleam in his eye. "I want to meet him. Arrange a meeting here at the presidential office. I'd like to thank him personally for everything he's done for the Republic." 2 weeks later, Matthew Hesh found himself standing in the grand halls of the presidential palace, feeling slightly out of place amidst the opulence. He wore his best suit, his demeanor calm but inwardly nervous. Beside him stood General Warner, who had accompanied him for the occasion. "Relax, Hesh," Warner said with a rare smile. "The president is a fan. This meeting will go well." Matthew nodded, adjusting his tie. "It's not every day you get summoned by the leader of the Republic. I hope I can live up to his expectations." Before Warner could respond, an aide opened the double doors to the president's office. "The president will see you now." The two men entered, and Clay rose to greet them, his expression warm and welcoming. "Mr. Hesh, at last we meet. It's an honor to finally shake the hand of the man who has done so much for this nation." Matthew accepted the handshake, his nerves easing slightly. "The honor is mine, Mr. President. Thank you for inviting me." "Please, have a seat," Clay said, gesturing to the chairs across from his desk. Once they were seated, he leaned forward, his tone sincere. "Mr. Hesh, I've been following your work closely, your vehicles, your wireless systems. And now this aircraft, it's nothing short of revolutionary. The Republic owes much of its recent success to your ingenuity." Matthew inclined his head. "Thank you, sir, but it's been a team effort. None of this would have been possible without the support of people like General Warner and my team at Hesh Industries." Clay smiled. "Modesty suits you, but don't undersell your contributions. General Warner has spoken highly of the aircraft demonstration, and I've reviewed the reports myself. I'm convinced we're moving forward with full support." Matthew's eyes widened slightly. "That's excellent news, sir. I promise you won't be disappointed." Discover stories at RanoVox.com. "I have no doubt," Clay said. "We'll begin by allocating funds for production and training facilities. We'll also establish airstrips and maintenance hubs across key strategic locations. This will be a monumental task, but I trust Hesh Industries to lead the charge." Matthew nodded, his confidence growing. "We're ready to take on the challenge, Mr. President." Clay leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "Tell me, Matthew, what drives you? You've achieved so much in such a short time. What keeps you pushing forward?" Matthew hesitated for a moment, then spoke earnestly. "Progress, sir. The belief that we can always do better. Innovation isn't just about making profits, it's about improving lives, solving problems, and shaping the future." Clay smiled, clearly impressed. "A noble sentiment, and one I wholeheartedly agree with. The Republic is lucky to have a citizen like you, Mr. Hesh. Consider this project not just an investment in technology, but an investment in the future of our nation." As the meeting concluded, Clay stood and extended his hand once more. "Thank you, Matthew, for everything you've done and will continue to do. The Republic owes you a great debt." Matthew shook his hand firmly, a sense of purpose filling him. "It's my privilege to serve, Mr. President." Chapter 107. The streets of Sylvania buzzed with energy as people moved about their day. But one name was on everyone's lips. Matthew Hesh. Posters of his face, often accompanied by slogans like "Innovator of the Republic" and "The Visionary who led us to victory," were plastered on walls, lamp posts, and even the sides of streetcars. Newspaper headlines heralded his achievements, from revolutionizing the military with advanced vehicles and wireless systems to demonstrating groundbreaking aircraft technology. Hesh's fame had transcended industry, making him a household name. His face graced magazine covers, and articles lauded his brilliance, humility, and contributions to the nation. Children carried small toys modeled after Hesh Motors vehicles, and workers in factories admired him as one of their own, a man who had risen through ingenuity and hard work to reshape the future of the Republic. In cafes, salons, and public squares, his name dominated conversations. Men debated his next moves in innovation, while women admired his composure and intellect across Amarathia. There was a palpable sense of pride that one of their own had become a global symbol of progress. Governor Rafer Fletcher of Sylvania sat behind his imposing desk, his fingers drumming anxiously on the polished wood. The room was grand, with ornate furnishings and walls adorned with maps of the state, but the air inside felt stifling. Across the desk sat his chief political advisor, Leonard Gray, who was holding a copy of the Sylvanian Herald. The headline read, "Matthew Hesh, the man who built the Republic's future." "This is getting out of hand, Leonard," Fletcher said, his voice tight with frustration. "Every meeting I attend, every speech I give, it's not about me or my policies anymore. It's about him, even in my own state, in being overshadowed by Matthew Hesh." Gray adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. "With respect, Governor, Hesh's contributions are monumental. The people adore him because he represents everything they aspire to: intelligence, innovation, and the ability to rise above challenges. That kind of admiration is hard to compete with." Fletcher slammed his hand on the desk. "I'm the governor of Sylvania. I've spent years building this state's infrastructure, fostering economic growth, and addressing public concerns. Yet all anyone wants to talk about is how great Hesh is. Do you know what they said in the last council meeting? If only Matthew Hesh could solve our railway congestion problem. As if I'm incapable of doing my job." Gray hesitated before responding. "It's not just about you. Governor Hesh is a national figure now. He's on the front page of every newspaper in the Republic. He's not even trying to overshadow you. It's happening naturally because of his accomplishments." "That's exactly my point," Fletcher exclaimed. "He's not even trying, and yet he's more popular than he'll ever be, and with re-election coming up, I can't afford to be forgotten." Gray raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting he's a political threat?" Fletcher leaned back in his chair, his expression dark. "He's in my state, Leonard. If he decides to run for office, any office, he'll win in a landslide. People would elect him governor, senator, maybe even president someday. What am I supposed to do then?" Gray frowned, choosing his words carefully. "Hesh hasn't shown any interest in politics. He seems entirely focused on innovation and industry, but if you're worried, perhaps it's time to step up your public engagement. Remind the people of your contributions, show them why they should support you. Are you on the side of Hesh?" Fletcher glared at him. Leonard Gray shifted uncomfortably in his seat, sensing the governor's simmering frustration. "Of course not, Governor Fletcher," he said cautiously, and continued, "I'm on your side, but ignoring reality won't help us. Matthew Hesh has captured the public's imagination in a way few ever have. You can't compete with that directly. What you can do is align yourself with it. Find adventures on Novelbin." Fletcher's glare softened slightly, but his irritation lingered. "Align myself? Are you suggesting I ride his coattails like some opportunist?" Gray shook his head. "Not at all. Think of it as collaboration. Highlight the ways your administration has supported Hesh's endeavors. Show that his success is tied to your leadership here in Sylvania." Fletcher leaned back in his chair, his expression pensive. "That might work, but it feels like I'm admitting defeat. In the governor of the state, Leonard, I shouldn't have to play second fiddle to anyone, even someone like Hesh." Gray adjusted his glasses, choosing his words carefully. "You're not admitting defeat, Governor, you're adapting to the situation. People see Hesh as a hero, a symbol of progress. If you can frame yourself as the leader who made it possible for him to thrive, you'll remind voters of your own value. It's not about competing with him, it's about showing that you're part of the same success story." Fletcher tapped his fingers on the desk, weighing the suggestion. Fine, he said after a long pause, draft a statement. I'll publicly commend Hesch's achievements and emphasize the role this administration played in fostering innovation in Sylvania. But make it clear that I'm still the one running the show. Gray nodded. Understood, Governor. I'll have a draft ready by tomorrow. Meanwhile, Matthew Hesch continued to go about his day, largely unaware of the political tensions his meteoric rise had caused. He spent his mornings at the factory overseeing production and testing new prototypes, and his afternoons meeting with engineers, investors, and military officials. On one particular day, as Matthew walked to a nearby cafe for a brief respite, he noticed the bustling streets of Sylvania adorned with his likeness. Posters with slogans like "The Visionary of Tomorrow" and "Hesch for the Republic" were everywhere. He stopped to admire one particularly large banner that stretched across the main square. "Mr. Hesch," a young boy shouted, running up to him with a small wooden toy car modeled after a Hesch Motors vehicle. "Is this like the ones you make?" Matthew crouched to the boy's level, examining the toy with a warm smile. "It's a fine model," he said. "Who made this for you?" "My dad," the boy said proudly. "He works at your factory." Matthew patted the boy on the shoulder. "Your father must be very skilled. Take good care of this, it's special." As the boy ran off, his mother called out, "Thank you, Mr. Hesch. You've done so much for the city." The following week, Governor Fletcher held a press conference on the steps of the state capitol. Reporters and citizens gathered in droves, curious about what the governor had to say. Fletcher stood at the podium, his expression composed but determined. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "our state of Sylvania has always been a beacon of progress and opportunity. We have nurtured talent, fostered innovation, and built an economy that is the envy of the Republic. Today, I want to take a moment to acknowledge one of our own, Matthew Hesch." The crowd murmured in anticipation. Mr. Hesch's achievements have brought pride not just to Sylvania but to the entire Republic. His work has revolutionized industries, strengthened our military, and improved countless lives. As governor, I am proud to have supported initiatives that allowed innovators like Matthew Hesch to thrive. The crowd erupted in applause. And Fletcher continued, "But let us not forget that progress is a team effort. The growth and success we see today are the result of collaboration between government, industry, and the hardworking people of this state. Together, we will continue to build a brighter future." The speech was well received, and Fletcher felt a small surge of relief. For now, he had managed to position himself as a part of Hesch's success story rather than a sidelined observer. Later that evening, Fletcher met with his inner circle in the governor's mansion. The mood was tense but optimistic. "Well," Fletcher asked, his voice sharp, "what's the feedback?" Gray adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. "Overall, the speech was a success. You've managed to align yourself with Hesch's image without appearing overshadowed. Public sentiment is positive." Fletcher sighed, but his relief was short-lived. "For now, but I need more than just positive sentiment. I need results. I want tangible projects that will remind people why I'm their governor, not just the man who shares a state with Matthew Hesch. We could focus on infrastructure, announce a major project like a new railway system or a public works initiative, something big and visible." Fletcher nodded. "Do it, and make sure it's something Hesch isn't already involved in. I need to reclaim the spotlight." Chapter 108. The air in Matthew Hesch's office was thick with the usual energy of productivity. Engineers moved in and out with blueprints, assistants delivered reports, and the faint hum of the factory's machinery provided a constant backdrop. Matthew sat at his desk, immersed in the details of a new project, when Robert Anders entered, carrying a clipboard and looking slightly hesitant. "Matthew," Robert began, his tone careful, "you have an appointment with a reporter from the Sylvanian Times in about 20 minutes. They requested a private interview." Matthew looked up, frowning slightly. "A private interview? About what?" "They didn't specify," Robert said. "But given the timing, I suspect it has to do with the upcoming gubernatorial election." Matthew's frown deepened. "What does the election have to do with me? I'm not a politician, Robert. My work has nothing to do with running for office." Robert hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "That's true, but your popularity has reached unprecedented levels. People see you as a symbol of progress. It's not unreasonable for some to wonder if you might broaden your influence." Matthew shook his head, irritated by the suggestion. "Influence? My work speaks for itself. I don't need to run for office to make a difference." Before Robert could respond, there was a knock at the door. A young assistant stepped in, announcing the arrival of the reporter. With a sigh, Matthew nodded and stood, straightening his jacket. "Send them in." The reporter, a young man named Edgar Langston, entered the office with an air of professionalism but a glimmer of curiosity in his eyes. He carried a leather-bound notebook and a pencil, and his demeanor suggested he was eager to get to the heart of his questions. "Mr. Hesh," Edgar began, extending a hand. "Thank you for agreeing to this interview. It's an honor to meet you." Matthew shook his hand firmly, offering a polite smile. "The honor is mine, Mr. Langston. Please have a seat." As they settled into their chairs, Edgar wasted no time. "Mr. Hesh, your contributions to the Republic have been nothing short of transformative. Your innovations played a pivotal role in winning the war and are now shaping the nation's future. Given your influence and popularity, there's a question that's been on many people's minds." Matthew tilted his head, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "And what question might that be? Have you considered running for office?" The question landed like a thunderclap. Matthew's expression shifted from polite interest to genuine surprise. "Running for office?" he echoed, almost incredulously. "Where did that assumption come from?" "Read new chapters at Novelbin." Calm Edgar leaned forward slightly, his pencil poised above his notebook. "Your name has been mentioned in political circles. Mr. Hesh, people admire you. They see you as a leader, a visionary. It's only natural for some to wonder if you might take that leadership to a political platform." Matthew leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed. "Let me be perfectly clear. I have no intention of running for office. My work here is my focus, innovation, progress. These are the ways I contribute to the Republic. Politics is a completely different arena, and it's not one I'm interested in." Edgar nodded, jotting something down before pressing on. "So you're saying there's absolutely no chance you'd consider running, not even in the future?" Matthew's irritation flickered to the surface, though he kept his tone measured. "That's correct. I'm not a politician, Mr. Langston. I'm an inventor and innovator. My place is here, creating things that improve lives, not campaigning or debating policy." Edgar smiled faintly, as though he'd heard such denials before. "You might be surprised, Mr. Hesh. Nearly everyone I've asked that question who initially said no ended up running for office eventually. Sometimes it's not about what you want. It's about what the people demand." Matthew's jaw tightened, his patience wearing thin. "Let me assure you, Mr. Langston, my answer will not change. My work is far too important to be sidelined by political ambitions. The idea that I would abandon it to pursue office is unfounded and, frankly, a waste of time to discuss." Edgar, sensing Matthew's irritation, cleared his throat and shifted gears. "I didn't mean to imply anything, Mr. Hesh. I was merely addressing the public speculation. Let's move on." Matthew nodded, his expression softening slightly. "Good idea. What else would you like to discuss?" Edgar asked several follow-up questions about Hesh Motors' upcoming projects, the expansion of the factory, and the future of technological innovation in the Republic. It was as if to save face, as poking further would lead to things that both parties wouldn't want. As the interview was winding down, Edgar paused, tapping his pencil against his notebook thoughtfully. "One last question, Mr. Hesh, if you'll indulge me." Matthew gestured for him to continue, though his earlier irritation had made him cautious. "Go ahead. With your growing influence and the sheer scale of your contributions to Amarathia, how do you see yourself shaping the future of the Republic? Whether it's through your industry or beyond?" Matthew considered the question carefully before responding. "I see myself as a creator. My focus has always been on solving problems and improving lives through innovation, whether it's enhancing transportation, communication, or manufacturing. My role is to push boundaries and set new standards. That's where I can make the greatest impact, not in speeches or policies, but in tangible advancements." Edgar nodded, his expression thoughtful. "That's an inspiring perspective. Thank you for your time, Mr. Hesh. It's been an enlightening conversation." Matthew stood, extending his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Langston. I appreciate your interest in our work." As Edgar left the office, Matthew watched him go, his earlier irritation lingering. The assumption that he would or should pursue a political career was unsettling. His work required focus, precision, and a dedication to progress that he felt politics could never provide. Once the door closed, Robert re-entered, carrying a fresh stack of reports. "Well, how did it go?" Matthew sighed, rubbing his temples. "It was fine, though he did try to steer the conversation toward politics again." Robert smirked. "I told you it was inevitable." Matthew shot him a sharp look. It's ridiculous. Just because I'm successful in one area doesn't mean I'd be effective or interested in another. The idea that innovation and leadership have to translate into political ambition is flawed. But you really wouldn't run in any office? Robert asked. Oh, please. The City Hall of Sylvania was a busy place, its grand corridors filled with officials, clerks, and the sound of footsteps echoing against the marble floors. Edgar Langston, clutching his notebook tightly, walked with purpose toward Governor Rayford Fletcher's office. The interview with Matthew Hesh had left him with plenty to report, and now it was time to share his findings with the governor. The governor's office was at the far end of the building, a large room with tall windows that overlooked the bustling streets of Sylvania. Inside, Governor Fletcher sat at his desk, looking over reports while puffing on a cigar. His expression was stern, and his demeanor gave away the pressure he was under. Standing nearby was his advisor, Leonard Gray, who seemed equally focused as he reviewed a stack of documents. When Edgar entered, Fletcher looked up, his sharp gaze landing on the reporter. Langston, he said, gesturing to the chair in front of his desk, sit down, let's hear what you've got. Edgar sat, placing his notebook on his lap. He hesitated for a moment, gathering his thoughts before speaking. Governor, I've just finished the interview with Matthew Hesh. It went well, but I have some news that might interest you. Fletcher leaned forward, setting his cigar in the ashtray. Did he mention anything about running for office? Edgar shook his head. No, Governor. In fact, he was quite clear that he has no interest in politics now or in the future. Fletcher's eyebrows rose slightly. He said that outright? Yes, Edgar confirmed. He seemed almost annoyed by the suggestion. He made it clear that his focus is on his work, not on campaigning or running for public office. Leonard Gray, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. That's good to hear. If he's not planning to run, that takes some of the pressure off. So, and am I getting the full payment? Edgar asked. Leonard, Fletcher barked, cutting off Edgar's question with a sharp glance. Take care of his payment. We owe him for his time. Leonard nodded, pulling a small ledger from his pocket. Consider it done, Governor. He turned his attention to Edgar. You'll receive the agreed-upon sum by the end of the day. Edgar gave a curt nod, relieved that the matter was settled. Thank you. Now, Governor, if there's nothing else, I'll be on my way. Fletcher waved a hand dismissively, his thoughts already shifting back to the bigger issue at hand. Go on, Langston, and remember, keep what you've shared with us discreet. With a final nod, Edgar stood and left the office, his footsteps fading into the hum of City Hall. Once the door clicked shut, Fletcher leaned back in his chair. So he is not really running, huh? He isn't. Chapter 109. Matthew Hesh's office was unusually quiet that morning. The usual hum of machinery and the buzz of activity outside seemed muted, a sharp contrast to the weight of the day's impending meeting. Matthew sat at his desk, reviewing blueprints for a new modular vehicle design. Robert Anders entered with a knock, his expression careful but curious. Matthew, Robert said, holding a letter embossed with an unfamiliar seal. Your guests from the Japanese Empire have arrived. They're waiting in the lounge. Matthew looked up, his brow furrowed slightly. The Japanese? I didn't expect them to visit in person so soon. Robert smirked. Diplomats tend to show up when something urgent is brewing. They were very polite, though brought a gift. Matthew stood, brushing off his jacket. Let's not keep them waiting. Have you prepared tea? Of course, Robert replied with a nod. I'll have it brought in shortly. Stay tuned for updates on Novelbin. Matthew walked into the lounge to find three men dressed in impeccable suits, their demeanor formal yet composed. They stood as he entered, bowing slightly in unison. The eldest of the group, a man with silver streaks in his neatly combed hair, stepped forward. Mr. Hesh, he began in flawless English, his tone respectful. It is an honor to meet you. I am Ambassador Takashi Nakamura, and these are my associates, Mr. Hayashi and Mr. Tanaka. On behalf of the Japanese Empire, we extend our deepest gratitude for your contributions to modern innovation. Matthew shook each of their hands, offering a polite smile. The honor is mine, Ambassador. Please have a seat. As they settled into the plush chairs, Robert entered with a tray of tea, setting it on the table between them. The aroma of green tea filled the room as Matthew poured a cup for each guest. Nakamura raised his cup slightly. To ingenuity and progress. Mr. Hesh. To ingenuity and progress, Matthew echoed, taking a sip. The warmth of the tea helped to ease the slight tension in the room. Nakamura set his cup down and leaned forward slightly, his expression one of genuine admiration. Mr. Hesh, I must say, your reputation precedes you. Your advancements in vehicles, wireless communication, and now aircraft are nothing short of extraordinary. If you had been born in Japan, I assure you, you would have been a national treasure. Matthew chuckled softly. I appreciate the compliment, Ambassador, but I'm just a man doing what I love, solving problems and pushing boundaries. Hayashi, the youngest of the group, spoke next, his enthusiasm evident. Your work has inspired engineers across the globe. In Japan, we often discuss how your designs could transform industries far beyond military applications. Tanaka nodded in agreement. Indeed, your modular vehicles and communication systems alone could revolutionize logistics and infrastructure. Matthew inclined his head. I'm glad my work has had a positive impact. Collaboration and shared knowledge are what drive progress. After a few more moments of polite conversation, Nakamura's tone shifted slightly, signaling a transition to more serious matters. Mr. Hesh, we are here today not just to express our admiration but also to discuss a potential partnership. Matthew leaned back, his hands resting on the armrests of his chair, listening. Nakamura exchanged a glance with Tanaka before continuing. The Japanese Empire is on the cusp of significant growth. Our ambitions extend beyond our borders. And we believe that technological superiority will be the key to securing our position in East Asia. We would like to acquire your vehicles and weapons exclusively. Matthew's brow furrowed slightly. Exclusively? That's a significant request, Ambassador. What exactly do you mean by exclusive? Hayashi leaned forward, his expression earnest. It means we would request that you refrain from selling these technologies to nations that could pose a threat to our interests, specifically China and Korea. The room grew still for a moment as Matthew absorbed their words. That's a bold proposition, he said carefully. May I ask why you've chosen to approach me directly rather than negotiating through traditional diplomatic channels? Nakamura smiled faintly. Your reputation for discretion and pragmatism precedes you, Mr. Hesh. We believe that dealing with you directly would expedite the process and ensure mutual understanding. Additionally, your innovations are uniquely suited to our needs. No other manufacturer in the world can offer what you can. Matthew crossed his arms, his tone measured. I appreciate your confidence, but I must point out that entering into an exclusive agreement of this nature carries significant risks. By aligning myself with one nation, I could alienate others and potentially limit the broader impact of my work. Tanaka nodded, his tone conciliatory. We understand your concerns, Mr. Hesh. That is why we are prepared to offer generous terms in exchange for your cooperation in addition to financial compensation. We are willing to establish manufacturing facilities in Japan under your supervision. This would allow you to expand your influence in Asia while maintaining control over your designs. Hayashi added, we would also provide access to rare materials and resources that are difficult to obtain elsewhere. Your projects could benefit greatly from such a partnership. I see. Well, I apologize, but as a business person, I don't transact with one party, I transact with all. If I limit my partnerships to one nation, even with the generous terms you're offering, I risk undermining the very principles that have brought Hesh Industries to where it is today. Innovation thrives when ideas and resources are shared. Exclusivity, while lucrative in the short term, could stifle that progress. Nakamura exchanged a glance with Tanaka, their expression shifting from amicable to serious, with a subtle undercurrent of frustration. Mr. Hesh, we understand your perspective, but perhaps you underestimate the significance of what we are offering. This is not merely a business transaction, it is an alliance that could shape the future of an entire region. Sorry, but I will sell my product to whoever wants to buy it, Matthew said. You can leave now. Very well, Mr. Hesh. If this is your decision, we will respect it. However, I must express my disappointment. Opportunities like this are rare, and your refusal may have unintended consequences for both of us. Chapter 110. A week had passed since the tense meeting with the Japanese diplomats, and Hesh Industries had settled back into its regular rhythm. The hum of machinery echoed outside as engineers and workers moved with purpose. Matthew Hesh was at his desk, carefully studying the blueprint for a more efficient modular engine. Robert Anders entered with a knock, holding a letter in his hand. Matthew, Robert began, his voice tinged with curiosity. You've got another delegation. This time it's the Chinese Empire. Matthew looked up from the blueprint, his expression serious. The Chinese? Did they say what they want? Robert shook his head. Not directly. Matthew sighed and leaned back in his chair. Interesting. Let's see what they have to say. Are they waiting in the lounge? They are, Robert confirmed. And they've brought their own tea, which frankly smells incredible. Matthew chuckled. It sounds like they're prepared. Let's not keep them waiting. As Matthew entered the lounge, he found 3 men seated at a polished table, dressed in finely tailored traditional Chinese robes adorned with subtle embroidery. They rose as he entered, bowing slightly as a gesture of respect. the leader of the group, an older man with a composed demeanor, stepped forward. Mr. Hesh. He began in carefully enunciated English. It is an honor to meet you. I am Ambassador Lu Chong, and these are my colleagues. Mr. Zhang Wei and Mr. Chen Xian, we represent the Chinese Empire. Matthew inclined his head politely. The honor is mine, Ambassador Lu, please have a seat. The three men returned to their seats, and a servant of theirs poured tea from an ornate pot into delicate porcelain cups. Ambassador Lu gestured toward the tea. This is a fine blend from Fujian province. Mr. Hesh, we hope you'll find it to your taste. Matthew took a sip, savoring the rich, aromatic flavor. It's excellent, thank you for sharing it. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Ambassador Lu set his cup down, his tone becoming more formal. Mr. Hesh, we are aware of your recent meeting with representatives from the Japanese Empire. Allow me to assure you that our intentions are quite different from theirs. Matthew raised an eyebrow, intrigued. You're aware of that meeting? Zhang Wei, the younger of the delegation, spoke next, his tone matter-of-fact. Our sources are well informed. Mr. Hesh, we understand that they approached you with a proposal for exclusivity, one you wisely declined. Matthew nodded but kept his expression neutral. If you already know my stance on exclusivity, then you'll understand why I'm cautious about partnerships of this scale. Chen Xian, the third member of the delegation, leaned forward slightly. We respect your caution, Mr. Hesh, however. It's important for you to understand why the Japanese are so eager to secure your technology. There is a storm brewing in East Asia, and we are here to ensure that our nation is not left defenseless. Matthew placed his cup down, his expression growing serious. You're speaking of war. Ambassador Lu nodded solemnly. Indeed, while I cannot disclose the specific alignments, I can tell you this much. Tensions in East Asia have reached a critical point. The Japanese are preparing for conflict, and they see your innovations as the key to securing dominance. Find exclusive stories on Novelbin. Matthew's eyes narrowed. And China's interest? Zhang Wei spoke again, his tone calm but resolute. China's interest is stability. Mr. Hesh, unlike the Japanese, we do not seek expansion or conquest. Our goal is to defend our borders and maintain peace within the region. For this reason, we are here to discuss a partnership that aligns with your values. Chen Xian added, we understand that you value the open exchange of ideas and resources. That is why we are not asking for exclusivity. Instead, we propose a mutually beneficial agreement that allows both our nations to prosper. Ambassador Lu gestured toward Matthew. Your designs have the potential to save lives, Mr. Hesh. By equipping our forces with your vehicles and weapons, you can help us maintain peace in a volatile region. But how does arming yourselves with my weapons maintain peace? Isn't that counterintuitive with what you are doing? If the Koreans or the Japanese were to see you equipped with my technology, they will see it as an escalation, not a step toward peace. How does arming yourselves with advanced weaponry ensure stability rather than provoke conflict? Ambassador Lu nodded slowly, acknowledging the validity of Matthew's concern. You are correct, Mr. Hesh. The line between preparation and provocation is a delicate one. However, the reality of geopolitics is that strength deters aggression. A well-equipped China can discourage others from attempting to exploit us or destabilize the region. Chen Xian added, his tone more assertive. You must also consider the broader implications, Mr. Hesh. If Japan secures exclusive access to your technology, it will undoubtedly tilt the balance of power in their favor. That is a scenario we cannot afford, and I doubt it is one you would wish to enable. You are all missing one thing. I don't think I can make this decision alone. Arming any one of you would mean handing out the best technology there is in the field of military, and my nation won't simply ignore the implications of such a transaction. These technologies are not just a matter of private enterprise, they hold strategic value that extends far beyond what Hesh Industries alone can dictate. I would need to consult with the Republic's leadership before moving forward on any such deal. We anticipated as much, Mr. Hesh. Rest assured, we are prepared to engage with your government if necessary. However, we wish to approach you first to establish a foundation of mutual understanding. Matthew nodded. I appreciate the gesture of trust, Ambassador. Transparency is important to me, and I value knowing where you stand. Thank you. This meeting of ours is now dismissed. As the Chinese delegation rose from their seats, Ambassador Lu extended a firm handshake to Matthew, a composed smile gracing his face. Thank you for your time, Mr. Hesh, we trust you will give our proposal the careful consideration it deserves. Matthew nodded, his expression neutral yet polite. I will, Ambassador. Safe travels back to your embassy.